Hello, welcome to the channel Why Stories. Enjoy watching.
The sun was slowly but steadily moving towards the zenith. Laura could feel the hot rays of the sun scorching her lower back through the thin cotton fabric of her t-shirt. Her arms and ankles became reddish. For a moment, she stopped working to assess the extent of the damage. What she saw shocked her, and she couldn't help but comment. "That's it. By evening, I'll have blisters, and then my skin will slash. I've barely been out, and I'm already burnt." Like most blondes, Laura was afraid of sunbathing. Miracle creams never helped her, so she tried to spend as little time as possible in the sun, especially on scorching days. However, today her neighbor compelled her to go out into the blazing heat. More precisely, it was not Julia herself, but rather the desire not to meet her. Many people in the village disliked this elderly woman for her quarrelsome nature. Laura had also had a bitter experience of interacting with her and now always made a point to steer clear of the neighbor's house. She even took a detour to the store to avoid accidentally running into the unpleasant old lady. For the same reason, she had to work in her garden intermittently and at the most inconvenient times. The cantankerous neighbor would emerge to tend her own beds when it was cool, but as soon as the sun started scorching, she would flee to her dilapidated little house. Various rumors circulated about Julia's dwelling in the village, sometimes even the most absurd ones. But the owner always referred to her abode as an estate, much to the amusement of the local jesters. The village comedians entertained the people with various jokes, with Julia as the protagonist. The old lady had her own way of perceiving the inhumane treatment from her fellow villagers. Despite her old age, she sought revenge on her tormentors with youthful enthusiasm. She had various methods at her disposal, but the grandmother especially enjoyed making up with complaints full of fabricated facts. Julia would file these complaints to the local police officer, then he spent time investigating them. When it was revealed that every word in the complaint was made up by the old lady, there was simply no desire to hold the old lady accountable. The impunity inspired the elderly woman to commit new mischief. Consequently, even children would steer clear upon spotting the lovely old lady from afar. Laura had spent her entire conscious life in her native village and strictly adhered to local traditions. However, she didn't always have the opportunity to hide from the troublesome old lady, as her estate was next door. That's how it happened on the day when this story began. From early morning, the temperature rose to 30 degrees Celsius. At first, Laura wanted to postpone weeding the beds to another day, but after breakfast, she had a quarrel with her husband, so she changed her decision. After eating 2 servings of potato pancakes with sour cream, Tobias started following his wife around like a little puppy. "Laura, my love. Don't deny I have the blossoming talent. Give me please 1,000 or even better, 2. Tobias, who was currently unemployed. He was obsessed with the idea of creating a great engineering marvel. He periodically begged his wife for money for this grand project. Laura had given in to her husband's pleas several times, but even kindness is a subject to a limit. Looking disdainfully at the beggar, she said, "Tobias, I warned you last time that you won't get a single penny from me anymore." The man started to swirl around his wife, saying, "Laura, why are you acting like a stranger? I promise, no, I swear, that this time everything will work out for me, and I'll pay back your debt 3 times over, no, 5 times over. And that's the minimum. I'm fed up with your promises. How about you tell me where that 5,000 you asked for 2 weeks ago is?" The man hated answering such questions. He became silent and started looking at the ceiling, with red stains from the leaking roof. Laura looked up too and mockingly asked, "Tobias, there's no money up there. You can only draw the 5,000 you spent to hide the stain. And how many more thousands and hundreds of dollars have you blown on your questionable projects? Where are the results, Tobias? Laura, why are you attacking me like this? You know these are just temporary difficulties. Do you think everything came easily to Nikola? Which Nikola are you talking about?" "Well, I mean Tesla. So far my name is not known, but who knows what will happen in 5 or 10 years. Trying to remain calm, Laura interrupted her loser husband's sweet dreams. Tobias, you are as far from Tesla as walking on the moon. You are just a plain failure, or simply saying a loser. That's why I'm completely cutting off funding for your ideas. And in simpler terms, I won't give you a penny anymore. Instead of wasting time on nonsense, you should think about finding a job. I can't be your funding machine forever. This reprimand deeply wounded Tobias's male ego, and a grimace of hatred immediately distorted his pampered face. Did you decide to beat me up with reproaches? Have you forgotten how I pulled you out of the dirt? If I hadn't married you 8 years ago, you'd still be working in the pigsty. I saved you from slave labor and poverty. Laura already knew that Tobias would start blaming her for all his failures. To avoid aggravating the situation, she silently went out onto the porch. But the husband was enraged, so he couldn't stop himself. You're making a mistake, Laura. You'll regret humiliating me. And you'll do it more than once. When I become rich, and it will definitely happen, I'll walk past you. You'll beg me to forgive your heartlessness, but I won't even look at you. To prevent his expressive monologue from being lost in the void, the man also left the house after his wife. Laura, without me you'll be lost. Come to your senses, poor thing. Otherwise, you'll end up spending your life in the garbage dump. Noticing that the only listener was getting further away from the house, Tobias ran after her but ended up falling into the trench he himself had dug over a month ago. Laura burst out laughing. See, Tobias? It's a sign from the universe. I remember you promised to install running water in the house. Then you promised to put in a sewage system. And all of your promises are in this hole where you just fell. Laura heard her husband cursing as he climbed out of the overgrown trench. She had long ago grown used to his dramatic outbursts. She tried to leave the troublemaker several times, but something always held her back. After all, there was no one in the world closer to her than Tobias. Despite his argumentative nature, he would never raise a hand to her and didn't drink, which was highly valued by the women in the village. That's why Laura put up with all of her husband's antics, hoping to keep their family together. Tobias had another positive trait. After quarrels, he experienced a creative surge. The man would lock himself in the garage for a long time, hoping to bring his project of the century to a logical conclusion. He couldn't explain the essence of it himself. Soon, a steady metallic scraping sound was heard from the garage, and Laura calmly went to weed the beds. Working on the land was calming, so she soon forgot about the morning incident. But an hour later, her back began to ache badly, and the sunburnt parts of her skin began to burn fiercely. The woman had a hard time straightening up. That was enough for today. There was a quiet rustling in the thick raspberry bushes behind the neighboring fence, and after some time, Julia herself appeared. Good day to you, Laura. And to you, Julia. Laura regretted not noticing her neighbor in time. Now she would have to listen to the ramblings of the eccentric old lady out of politeness. But Julia wasn't bothered that Laura wasn't excited to meet her at all. She brushed the plants off her warm vest. Damn that raspberry bushes. They've completely taken over. And nobody cares. Everything is abandoned, she remarked. Laura was surprised not only by the old woman's inappropriate attire, but also by how eagerly she pushed her way through the thorny bushes. This woman wouldn't make such sacrifices just for simple curiosity. Her suspicions were confirmed when Julia adjusted the handkerchief on her small head, resembling an unripe pumpkin. Laura, it's good that I saw you. There's something happening, and we can't do it without your help, she said. I'm listening carefully, Julia. The elderly woman's thin lips spread into a smile, and her voice took on a sycophantic tone. Laura understood that the old lady was about to ask for something. In 8 years of living with Tobias, she had learned to take even the most unusual requests calmly. But from the way the neighbor was struggling to gather her thoughts, she realized that the old woman was about to make some special demands. Julia cleared her throat for reassurance. Let me tell you this, dear neighbor. My grandson, who is a well-known person in town and almost a billionaire, has decided to revive our village. Although Laura did not yet understand what the grandmother was getting at, she supported the initiative in absentia. It's about time that we change something. The grandmother was delighted with the support. And my Elio also thinks that it's time to update the village. He wants to build a bunch of shops and a factory here where the workers will make juices. But first, my grandson plans to build himself a 2-story house with an underground garage and parking. He told me a lot of details, but I couldn't understand everything over the phone. I'm very happy for you and your grandson, Julia. But what does it have to do with me? Now, dear, I will explain everything. Elio really liked this place where my estate is located. There is a river nearby and a store within walking distance. Okay. But what about me? Julia couldn't take it anymore. Her peaceful tone turned angry. How don't you understand? Our houses are right next to each other. Elio will build his house on the site of my estate. Anyway, I've already written everything to him in my will. But my grandson wants to make a small park with a summer tent and fountains. He has 3 children who need a separate place to play and have fun. Elio also is planning. Laura interrupted the persistent neighbor. Thank you for sharing your beloved grandson's plans with me, but they don't interest me much. What do you want from me, Julia? The neighbor rolled her eyes in surprise. Why are you pretending to be so silly, Laura? My grandson has his sights set on your plot. Do you get it? As far as I know, the deed for the house is in your name, right? When Agata died, her land and property passed into your hands. Or am I mistaken? And what does that have to do with anything? Laura asked with indifference. The old woman waved her hand as if she was holding a sword. Fine. I see, Laura, that talking to you is pointless. Elio will be here soon, and he will speak in a different manner. Don't threaten me, Julia. And tell your Elio that I have no intention of selling the house. He should rely on your inheritance, Laura replied firmly. The old woman shook her fists even more. For your harmful nature, Laura, God won't give you or your children anything. And he won't. The old woman knew how to hurt her unyielding neighbor. She touched the sorest spot. In anger, Laura picked up a dry twig from the ground and threw it at Julia, exclaiming, You crone! Go away! The twig whistled and landed somewhere in the bushes, but Julia's scream indicated that the young woman had hit her target. Julia started issuing threats from afar. I'll file a police report about you. You'll get a sentence for harming me, Julia shouted. Laura was no longer paying attention to the old woman's screams. She slowly walked towards the house, trying to answer the main question, why do all the misfortunes fall on my head? Upon her arrival, Tobias perked up. Oh, my Laura has arrived. Are you tired? Do you want me to heat up lunch? Her husband acted as if there had not been a morning argument. He busied himself in the kitchen, detailing his work as he went. At first, I was going to work in the garage, but then I thought that I needed to clean the stain on the ceiling, he said. Laura looked up. The problem area was covered by a crookedly glued piece of wallpaper with a completely different shade, but her husband was very pleased with his work. Is it really better this way? The woman was so tired from the noisy morning that she preferred to lie. Yes, dear. It's really hard to notice. The compliment cheered up the man, and immediately he started imagining things. Tomorrow I'll bury a trench. One could break your legs otherwise. We're unlikely to get water facilities in the house this summer anyway. It requires a lot of money. Once I finish my project and get a patent, we'll live well. We'll go to the south. Tobias noticed that his wife did not share his joy. Laura, what's wrong? Is your back hurting again? The woman often complained of lower back pain. This would often prevent her from getting out of bed for several days. Tobias would then treat her with ointments and even give her injections. But now it was clear that his wife's bad mood was not due to her back. Just now, Tobias, I had an argument with Julia. The old witch was waiting in ambush for me in her garden. And what does she want? Not her, Tobias, her grandson. In short, they want our land with the house. Tobias whistled in surprise, to which Laura immediately reacted sharply. How many times have I asked you not to whistle in the house? That's why we always struggle with money. Oh, come on. It's just superstition. Personally, I don't believe in any signs. Tell me, how much are they offering for our property? Tobias looked at his wife like a 5-year-old child who had come to a toy store to pick out something he likes. By the way, I sat next to Elio in the primary school for 3 whole years. Then his parents moved to the capital. Our local said that his dad made his way in life, and since then he had a flow of money. Therefore, we can consider this offer. Laura cautiously sat down on a chair. Tobias, are you serious? Do you think I'm joking, Laura? We're being offered money. And this doesn't happen every day. Think about the prospects. I'll be able to finish my project, which, in turn, will allow me to get a profitable contract, and then... Tobias, why do you always talk about yourself and your plans? By the way, this is my home and maybe you should ask for my opinion on this matter. And then, have you thought about where we'll live if we sell the house? The man looked at his wife with the same childish look. Sorry, I didn't think about that. But we can rent an apartment or part of a house for a while. Enough, Tobias. Stop talking nonsense. I'm not going to sell the house to Elio or anyone else. Your plans will really make me become a homeless person. Tobias remained standing in confusion in the kitchen with a ladle in his hand. The man was trying to understand how it was possible to refuse money that was practically falling into their hands. It wasn't even a week after his unpleasant conversation with Julia when the village was graced with the arrival of Elio Gonzalez himself. The entire small population of the village poured out onto the streets to express their respect for this iconic figure. It was surprising, but the scene resembled the arrival of a royal personage captured by the hand of a famous painter. Only instead of the empress there was a successful businessman. Elio instantly sensed the mood of the crowd. He smiled and bowed to all sides. There were, of course, those who looked at this with amusement, but the majority were literally devouring their hope with their eyes. Glad to see you all, my fellows. I promise to do everything I can to revive our little motherland. The only thing missing to make the picture complete was candy or money that Helio's bodyguards could have handed out as part of their duty. But it seemed that the local billionaire was too stingy to hand out gifts. However, even without any material support, the PR company succeeded at a high level. Now, everyone in the village was talking about Helio's arrival. And Julia couldn't be prouder. Tobias decided he should take advantage of the opportunity too. During dinner, he casually said to his wife, I think I need to make sure to pay Elio a visit. Maybe he'll remember me from school. Laura unexpectedly supported her husband. Go ahead. Maybe he'll offer you a job. If he plans on building, he'll certainly need specialists. You can at least be useful for something. Of course, Laura, I value your opinion, but I'm not a builder. My specialty is completely different. It seemed like the man was offended and hinted at his engineering diploma. But his moment of glory was short because his wife mercilessly cut off his untimely flight of fantasy. Your specialty, Tobias, is to sit on my neck. And I'm tired of it. And you must understand that good times don't last forever. You have to start making a living at some point. Another scandal was about to happen. Tobias had already taken a deep breath to respond appropriately to his wife's betrayal. But at that moment, there was an unexpected knock on the door. The couple was very surprised to see that Mr. Gonzalez himself had come to visit them. The host of the house immediately began to fuss over his guest. Welcome to our home. I must confess, Elio, I didn't expect you to remember me, but I won't deny that such attention is pleasant. The guest simply nodded in response to the welcoming ritual, but kept a pause. He sat down at the table, which was quickly set by Laura, and even drank the drink that the host offered him. "Well, Elio, tradition dictates that we make the first toast to our meeting," he said. The men laughed and reached for the salted cucumbers that the hostess had placed on the table. "Help yourself, dear guest." "My hostess makes exquisite pickles," said the hostess. The businessman croaked again. "That's true, Tobias. Only the women in our village know how to do it properly." "Then let's have one more drink. No one should stop after the first one." "Don't get me wrong, I'm not particularly fond of this, but I believe in preserving ancestral traditions," said Tobias. "Agreed. But don't pour me any more, I have hypertension. I don't want to go down prematurely." "I have a lot of work to do," replied Elio. Elio was an excellent orator. He knew when to pause and when to emphasize certain words. Laura had briefly attended an artistic reading club in school where they taught them how to speak correctly. Now she watched the guest with undisguised interest, realizing that he had come to them not just for old friendship with Tobias. But the guest began from afar. "Tobias, how many years have passed since we used to play pranks together after classes?" The homeowner mentally started counting. "Almost 30. You left right after the primary school." Elio sighed. "Yes, unfortunately, we can't predict where life will take its next turn. I never thought I would return to my native village. But what amazes me the most is how small the world is. Why am I saying this? You'll find out soon. Imagine, when I shared my plan with my colleagues, there was a person in my team who also came from these parts." The guest stared at Laura, but she calmly waited for him to continue the story. Tobias was clearly puzzled by this turn of events. "Elio, why are you beating around the bush? Just tell us the whole story." With visible irritation, the guest corrected his former schoolmate. "Mr. Elio, if you don't mind." Offended, Tobias also asserted his ambitions. "If that's the case, then call me Mr. Tobias as well. My wife is none other than Miss Laura." The guest realized his mistake and immediately backtracked. "I didn't mean to offend you." "We're not offended, but let's get to the point, Elio. Who is the person you found in your company who can't live without our village? I think you're familiar with him." "It's Poletto Natin." The plate slipped out of the startled hostess's hands. "Uncle Natin? He works for you? I told you, the world is small." The guest had finally achieved the desired effect and now enjoyed the result. "You see, dear Laura, I had a frank conversation with your uncle, during which it became clear that Natin is very unhappy with his grandmother's last will and testament. Moreover, he considers the document invalid and even plans to contest it." Feeling the approaching storm, Tobias interjected. "But that's impossible." "You're mistaken, my friend. It's possible. After all, it hasn't been a year since your grandmother passed away, right? Or am I mistaken, Laura?" Laura's mouth went dry. "What do you mean by that?" "Grandma made and notarized her will while she was still alive." "I understand, but you're not the direct heir." But Uncle Natin refused himself. And now he changed his mind. "I advise you to think everything over again very carefully. And remember, I make a very profitable offer only once, and then. Oh, by the way, Tobias, I plan to start construction before the fall, so I need reliable people. As an old friend, I can offer you to work for me. But I'm not a builder. I'm more into iron stuff." "That's fine. You can be a master or a foreman. Agree?" Tobias straightened up. "I'm always ready." "Then come by tomorrow. I'm staying with Grandma for now, but it's temporary. As soon as I settle all my affairs, I'll return to the city." "What about the building process?" "That's why I'm looking for reliable people. People I can trust with a serious business and money." As soon as the guest left and the door closed, Tobias cursed. "What a bastard your Uncle Natin is." Laura said quietly. "I didn't expect such treachery from him either. He brought so much grief to my mom. And now he's taking it out on me. Laura's mother and grandmother carefully avoided talking about her father. When she was very young, she wasn't interested in the matter, but later she tried several times to find out where he was and why he lived in another country. Uncle Nathan, her mother's brother, decided to enlighten his niece. One day during a family dinner, he said, "Valeriana, I think it's time to tell the girl everything." Laura remembers well how her mother pleaded with her brother. "Nathan, please don't. You know perfectly well that Giorgio is not guilty. Who is to blame then?" "No, dear sister, he left you with a year-old child and ran off to his uncle. He traded you and your daughter." Unexpectedly, the grandmother supported her son. "Yes, that's exactly how it was. And you, Valeriana, were blinded by love and didn't finish college. You could have made something of yourself, if not for your early marriage." The 15-year-old girl was uncomfortable listening to her grandmother and uncle blame her mother for loving her father. Laura decided to defend her mother. "Is love a crime?" The grandmother said to her granddaughter, "You're too young to understand. When you have children of your own, then you will know what it's like to raise them. I raised 2 on my own. Worked 2 jobs and even raised pigs. And all that to educate my children. Thank goodness, at least Nathan became a decent person. But Valeriana didn't appreciate my efforts and fell in love. She got married in her 3rd year of college, and soon after you were born." Grandma was ready to continue her story, but Mom shouted at her, "Please, don't tell such things in front of the child. It was because of your efforts that I became a single mother. It was you, Mom, who played a comedy with your illness when Giorgio came for us. It was you who separated daughter and father." After that, relatives began to shower each other with reproaches. Laura was disgusted to listen to them, and she ran away to her friend's house. Soon after, a tragedy occurred with Mom. When she was feeding pigs, Grandma had 8 of them. A wild boar attacked her. The woman screamed for a long time, but no one heard her. Only late in the evening, Grandma suddenly realized, "Laura, where did Valeriana disappear to? I saw that she came home from work, and then she just disappeared." The girl found her mother, lying unconscious. When the doctors did an X-ray in the hospital, they were shocked. Poor thing. There's not a single unbroken bone in her body. Multiple fractures, internal organs damaged. The mother lay in the hospital for several months. She underwent one operation after another, but she grew weaker with each passing day. Laura would run to the hospital after school and sit by her sick mother's bedside for hours. She had to do her homework late at night. Grandma only visited her daughter 3 times during that whole time. "I don't have time to go wandering around hospitals. I have my farm to take care of. If I don't feed the animals on time, they'll perish. And you, Laura, should go there less often. Just pop in for 5 minutes, that's enough. I can't do without your help." Once Laura couldn't bear such injustice. "Grandma, aren't you ashamed? Mom is your daughter, and you treat her as if she's adopted. But everything is for Uncle Nathan, these pigs, and that cursed boar that trampled Mom, also everything is for him." Agata was shocked and couldn't say a word, while Laura cried and screamed with indignation. "I sincerely wish this boar would die." The old woman immediately came to her senses. She slapped her granddaughter hard across the face. "Shut your filthy mouth. That boar weighs more than 10 PUDs. That evening, Laura didn't come home to spend the night. She stayed by her mother's side all night, whose condition had suddenly deteriorated. The woman was either immersed in a restless sleep or calling out to her. In the morning, she asked, "My dear daughter, there are photos in my album at home where we are all together, you, me, and your father. Don't believe it, he's a very good man. Everything just turned against us. If I get better, we'll definitely go to see your father. Here's his address. Write to him." 2 days later, Laura's mother passed away. Laura searched for the photo that her dying mother had spoken about in the documents but couldn't find it. And then she forgot about the picture because a completely different life began for her. Now all the responsibilities of running the household fell on the fragile shoulders of the 16-year-old girl. After school, she would rush home to feed the pigs and chickens. Then she would have to weed the enormous vegetable garden. During summer vacation, while her school friends went on trips with their parents to the seaside or attended health camps, Laura worked from morning till late evening without rest. Her list of duties was enormous, and her grandmother made sure that every task was completed. Twice a year, Uncle Natin would come from the city with a car packed full of food and, with unbridled pleasure, would leave once again. The heavy labor took a toll on the girl's health. She was diagnosed with a spinal hernia, and later doctors discovered problems in the female reproductive system. So Tobias was right about one thing: he did rescue her from slave labor when he proposed to marry her. Agata took the news of her granddaughter's engagement harshly. She threw a fit. I was everything to her, and yet she decided to leave me to fate's mercy. You're so ungrateful. The future son-in-law listened to these unjust accusations and advised Agata to put her son to hard labor. To the grandmother, this proposal was equivalent to an insult, and she kicked Tobias out. That was when Laura first disobeyed the old stubborn woman and left home with her fiancé. For a while, they stayed with the husband's parents, where Tobias' brother and his family also lived. About a year passed, and Agata came to visit. The woman cried for a long time, complained about her fate. And then she fell on her granddaughter's knees and began to beg her for forgiveness. Forgive me, Laura. For everything, please forgive me. Since you left me, I cannot find any peace. Come back, please, live with Tobias and me. I have exhausted all my strength. I am not healthy enough to take care of livestock. Watching your loved one being humiliated was unbearable, and the young couple returned to Agata's house. The grandmother kept to herself and tried not to interfere in her granddaughter's family affairs. She often fell ill, and Laura stayed by her bedside day and night, just like when her mother was dying. Agata missed having something to do and worried even more about her Uncle Natin. Laura, could you call him? Maybe something happened? Why isn't he coming? How could he forget his mother? Agata said. Laura dialed her uncle's number many times, but he always claimed to be too busy. Tobias sincerely felt sorry for the old woman. He heard these pleas, but it was only once when Laura angrily spoke her mind about her uncle. Your Uncle Natin is a real scumbag. When this old lady was healthy enough to take care of the livestock so that he and his kids could eat well, then he showed up. But he has no time to visit his helpless mother, she said. For 6 years, the son only visited his mother once, but only stayed for an hour. Soon after that visit, Agata decided to change her will in favor of her granddaughter. Just before her death, she gave Laura a photo of her happy parents holding her as a baby. On the back of the picture was an address written in English. It was all me, Laura. I didn't want Valeriana to go abroad. And I separated her from Giorgio. He was a good guy even back then, and he was already a candidate for a job there. He came to see you later, but I didn't allow Valeriana to leave. But the worst part is when he called once, I lied. I said that Valeriana got married to a good guy. Laura listened to her grandmother's confession, but there was no anger left in her. She understood that nothing could be changed now and forgave her grandmother. After her death, there was only one close person left in the world for her. Most of all, Laura was afraid that he would betray her one day. But there is a belief that what a person fears will inevitably happen one day. As promised by Elio, a large building project began in the village in August. Tobias eagerly took on the task assigned to him. From early morning until late at night, he disappeared at the site entrusted to him. He rarely shared his work with his wife, answering her questions directly. Everything is fine. The work is going well and the salary is being paid. But a month passed, then a second, but her husband never brought the promised salary home. He had completely forgotten about his super project and rarely visited the garage. As Laura later found out, she didn't even suspect that her husband had embezzled other people's money. Everything surfaced unexpectedly. One day, Tobias came home earlier than usual. His face was pale as a sheet and his hands were shaking. "Laura, I need money urgently. A lot of money." The woman's heart froze with a sense of foreboding. What happened? This simple question sent her husband into a fit of rage. For the first time in his life, he even raised his hand against her. "What are you acting like you're saintly innocent? I told you straight that I need money urgently. Are you my wife or not?" Laura remained silent. A small tremble shook her, and her hands and feet became icy. Finally, she managed to calm herself down. "I asked you directly, Tobias, what happened? I have the right to know. And you're always going on about your damn rights. It's all your fault. You pushed me to work with that moron. You're always nagging for more money. To me, it seems like you're always trying to drain me of money. What do you want me to do this time? Help me out one last time. Let's sell this damn house before that scammer's offer expires. Can you explain to me properly? Why the urgency? Fine, listen. It's just the bad luck again. I decided to redirect some of the money Elio allocated for the materials to another project temporarily." "What project?" "There was a promising deal I was looking to invest in to receive substantial dividends. But it didn't work out. I ran into scammers. And of all days, today Elio demands all the receipts." "That's the story," said Tobias. Laura didn't want to hear about this man anymore. She didn't care at this point. "Okay. We'll sell this house or Uncle Nathan will take it from us anyway, but where will we live?" she asked Tobias. He had no answer. The next morning, Uncle Nathan appeared. Well, youngsters. Weren't you waiting for me, were you? I see I arrived out of the blue. But in a way, that's good because we can sort out the inheritance issue immediately, while I have filed for a review of this matter. Of course, I hired a good lawyer, so to avoid any stress for you or for me, I suggest you move out of the family home on your own, he said. After all, the bailiffs will still come for you later. And I have no doubt that the judges will rule in my favor. I am the son, and Laura is the granddaughter. The law is on my side. And as for my mother's will, she wasn't in her right mind. I even have a certificate to prove it. In short, I give you a day. Uncle Nathan left. Laura began to pack her things. Tobias asked in surprise, "Where are you going?" "Anywhere but here." "What about me? Don't you understand that Elio will come after me for the money?" At that moment, the door burst wide open, and the autumn wind rushed into the room. Tobias stared at Elio in horror. "Wow, we were just talking about you and your wife. It's just like the saying, think of something, and it will appear." The joke didn't go well, and in the next moment, Tobias' body slammed into the opposite wall with a loud noise. "What was that for, Elio?" he asked, wincing in pain. "You know what it was for," Elio replied, ignoring both Laura and Tobias' pain as he placed a chair in the center of the living room. "So, are we going to joke around or have a serious conversation? This concerns both of you, Laura, you too." "What does it have to do with me?" "He spent your money, deal with him," Laura replied. "No, that's not the agreement we made. Tobias is your spouse," Elio said. "And what does that mean?" Laura asked. "It means my guys will beat him up. He messed up big this time. But this time, he won't get away with it." "I need the money," Elio said. Tobias managed to crawl out of the corner. "Elio, I swear, I will compensate for everything. I am ready to work for free at your construction site for a year." "You talk big. But it won't be you, scumbag, who will work for me, it will be your wife. And as for your punishment, I have another mission in mind. I don't think you'll like it, but there are no other options if you want to live. Tobias crawled on his knees in front of Elio. It was disgusting to see this humiliating scene, and Laura grabbed her suitcase, but the guest grabbed her hand. The woman tried to break free. "Let me go. It hurts." But Elio squeezed even tighter. Laura screamed, "Madam, it will hurt even more if I hand you over to my boys. They love working with women, so you better not resist." "So, Tobias, are you giving your woman up for temporary use?" "I am, Elio. You can take her forever if you want." Laura watched as her husband crawled in tears at the feet of his former classmate. She felt no pity for him, only contempt and disgust. Elio read all of this in the loyal woman's eyes. With one hand, he took her suitcase and led her to the exit. At the door, Laura turned around as if she were bidding farewell to her past life forever. "Let's go. You don't need to trouble yourself with such an unpleasant sight." Elio easily pushed the woman towards the exit. The door slammed shut. But outside, Tobias could be heard wailing at the top of his lungs. "Laura, stay. I'll die without you." The businessman snorted disdainfully. "He's so worthless. That's what awaits you if you stay with this man. Forgive me for being blunt, but I'm really ready to tear Tobias apart. He screwed me over so badly. I don't know how to get out of this now." Helio's words sounded quite human, and Laura looked at him in surprise. "I don't understand. Do you really want to enroll me as your slave?" "Yes and no. Come on, let's talk. I have an offer for you. Of course, you can refuse, but then I'll ask for all the money your husband spent to be returned. Despite everything, he's still your husband. But you'll still take the house, won't you?" Elio nodded in agreement. "I'll take it. And nobody can stop me now, as you already know. But the problem is, the money for this house won't be enough to cover the debt. Do you even know how much he owes me? Look, on one hand, I don't care about anyone living here. You're a smart woman, I'm sure you understand that. And I don't care about your idiot husband either. Me giving him a chance is a stroke of luck for you." Elio stopped at his car, opened the door for Laura. "You believe in miracles here in the village, but miracles don't happen. In the city, for that amount of money, the whole family would have been taken care of a long time ago. And here I am, talking to you." He seated Laura in the car and they drove off. Laura felt her heart sinking. "I want to tell you something, Laura. If you try to run away, Tobias will be dead. So now a human life depends on you." Laura understood. He may have regretted it at first, but now he was all in. "And what am I supposed to do? And most importantly, for how long? I haven't counted how long it will take. It all depends on your work. But you'll see what to do now." They drove to the edge of the village. Beyond it was a valley that couldn't be seen from the village. Laura was just amazed. She had completely changed in a few months. There were huge greenhouses in rows, apple and pear trees planted, and some unfamiliar trees for Laura. A large wooden building stood off to the side. There it is. Someone has to be responsible for all of this. Not only do you have to work, but you have to make others work too. And you have to be responsible. Do you understand, Laura? Not really. Well, look. You will work well. And everyone must work well. And I will come and observe. And if you work poorly, then the debt will not decrease. And if the debt does not decrease, you will have to work here for a very long time. Only now did Laura realize what a trap she had fallen into. Will Tobias also work off the debt? Elio laughed. No, Laura. Your husband is useless. Not only is he lazy, but he's also a thief. So you and only you will work off the debt. But that's not fair. Laura almost cried. Where did you think it's a fair world, Laura? And besides, you heard it yourself, your husband gave you to me for debts. I'll go to the police. The woman firmly grasped the door handle. Go ahead, of course. I have a lot of witness testimony about how you and your husband robbed me together. Believe me, for such an amount, both of you will be sentenced for a long time. What a scumbag you are. Elio laughed again. I have to agree with you there. If I weren't a scumbag, I'd be living in complete poverty and filth like you and Tobias. Well, shall we go? I'll help you carry your suitcase. They approached the barracks. In other words, it couldn't be called a building. As Laura realized, she wasn't the first one here. A woman who looked more like a man came out to meet them. So, did you bring another one? Is she good at anything, or is she also a useless one like the rest? Well, Lita, you're here to make sure everyone works like bees. Lita shook and laughed. Well, you know, even a fly will gather honey for me. Elio turned around and, without saying goodbye, strode towards the car. Laura caught up with him. Don't forget to calculate how much more debt I have, so I know how much I have to work here. When I have time, I'll calculate it. Don't worry, it won't take days. And yet, maybe I'll want to pay off the debt with money. Elio looked at her as if she were crazy and walked on. As it turned out, there were several other unfortunate souls like Laura here. One was working off her husband's debt, who had accidentally crashed Helio's car, while her husband stayed home taking care of their 2 children. Another had accumulated too much debt. Elio had saved her, and she thought he was a kind person, but ended up here. In essence, they were all here voluntarily, or almost voluntarily, because if any of them left or quit their job, problems would rain down on them like manna from heaven. Elio didn't force anyone to stay. They could go home, visit home. However, Laura didn't have a home. She got out a week later, wanting to show Tobias what her hands had become and spit in his face. But she got out, and there was no house. In the place of the house, where her favorite roses grew, there was a construction site in full swing. Laura cried and turned back. Laura? She turned around. Katerina was standing next to her. She used to come to their house quite often when Laura's grandmother was alive. She used to scold the grandmother, but she never took offense. They had been friends for a long time. Hello, Katerina, Laura sighed. I don't understand. The house was sold, and there's no one there. I saw Tobias leaving with suitcases. Aren't you with him? I'm not with him. I'm working here. For Elio, right? They say he doesn't pay at all and tries to cheat everyone. Or are people lying? She waved her hand and started crying. Are you okay, girl? Come on, tell me what happened to you? In just 6 months, there have been so many changes. Laura and Katerina sat down on the grass, and Laura told her everything. She knew that Katerina wouldn't be able to help her, but it felt a little better to talk about it. The old woman shook her head and said, I don't even know who's worse in this situation, your useless husband Tobias or Elio. Well, we can understand who Elio is, he's been a scumbag since he was a kid. But Tobias, I'd kill him. And it's all your fault, Laura. You should have made him work and not given him food. Where have you seen a woman making a living for her own and her husband? Katerina spat loudly, sat down, and thought. Here's what, Laura. You need to find your father. Laura looked at Katerina in amazement. And do you know about him? Who doesn't know about him? Well, some who are younger. But Elio was a good guy. Alejandra, that bitch, is just like Elio. She made a fortune from this farm, didn't she? And she couldn't let Valeriana go because someone had to take care of her farm. It can't be. Grandma said she just didn't want to part with us. Katerina waved her hand. You can think whatever you want, Laura, but I knew Alejandra much better. No one was ever needed for her except her Natin. Damn it, every man is some kind of scum. Maybe we have an anomalous zone here. Katerina started thinking, and Laura smiled. Grandma Katerina always loved everything unusual, paranormal. Her daughter fought with her as best she could. They put out the house twice because Katerina lit candles for the evil spirits and forgot about them. Well, they managed to put it out. Once her daughter wanted to heat the stove. It was very cold then. She opened the damper, and instead of the place where the firewood was put, there was a fresh brickwork. It's a good thing she didn't grab it, they broke it. And that Katerina, she was patching up a hole in those worlds. Everyone loved the old woman, but if something came to her mind. The old woman never saw Laura again. She quickly got up, looked around, and authoritatively declared to herself, "That's right. Abnormal. We need to save the world." And she quickly strode off to the village. Laura sighed. Yes, one suffer with someone like that. Who knows what will come to her mind? Laura returned to the barracks. Her neighbor was lying on her stomach and typing on her laptop with someone. Maya. What? Listen, is it really possible, for example, to find a person abroad in social networks? Of course, it's possible. Why are you asking? Did you find a rich relative who's willing to pay for you? Oh, come on. I just wanted to try and find someone. Well, let's try. I've already talked to my people and cried about it, so I'm free. How much longer do you have? 2 months, and then I'm free. If I don't get any new fines. Laura sighed. According to her calculations, she had to work here for almost a year. And that's only if there are no fines, but you can be penalized very quickly here. She took out a photo and showed the back to Maya. She started typing something quickly. Look, there's someone with this name. Laura, look, he's online. Maya, don't speak in riddles. Well, he's online now. Come on, tell me what to text him. We don't need to do anything, are you crazy? What do you mean, we don't need to text him anything? He's important to you, isn't he? Laura remembered Tobias, her home, her whole life, and waved her hand. It was some relief. Okay, hello, Giorgio, this is Laura writing to you, Valeriana's daughter. Maya chuckled. You sound like a soldier writing a letter from the war. Maya. Okay. Oh, look, he read it. And? He's not responding yet. Well, he probably won't reply. Laura lay down and had already fallen asleep when Maya nudged her. He replied. Wow, he wrote a lot. All right, here, read it, and I'll go smoke so I won't disturb you. Laura looked gratefully at Maya and sat in front of the laptop. She read the words, wiped away tears, reread them again. Maya returned and saw Laura in tears. She sighed. That's it, dear. Take the laptop to your bed, and I need to sleep. I don't want to get in trouble tomorrow. And don't sit for too long, you have to work tomorrow too. Giorgio apologized for not persuading Valeriana to go against Agata's will. He was upset and didn't contact them for many years. Then work got in the way, this and that. When he woke up, he decided that he was no longer needed. Valeriana has been married for a long time, and her daughter probably calls another man her father. My mother was never married. Not even for a day. Giorgio was silent for a while. Laura thought he wouldn't respond anymore. I had such a thought. But then I decided that no matter how cruel Agata was, she wouldn't lie like that. So she did. Do you have a wife, children? I have no one. I've been married. It lasted 6 months twice, but I called my wives Valeriana. And then I stopped trying. And God didn't give me children. Or rather, he did, but I lost them. But it's not your fault? Another long pause. It's my fault. It's always the man's fault because he has to be stronger, wiser, smarter, you know? It's all my fault, and now I'm dying. I have very little time left, and I was still afraid to write to you. Dying? Why? There is, Laura, a disease that doesn't look at the place or the person. It just comes and takes whoever it wants. Of course, Laura knew she knew everything. She felt tears running down her cheeks. It was so insulting, so painful to realize that she had just found her father and wouldn't even be able to see him. Laura, let's video chat tomorrow. Oh, I don't know how. If Maya allows, she can help. So that's not you in the photo? No, of course not. I'll ask her. Until tomorrow. Laura received reprimands all day. She was fined so much that Maya couldn't take it anymore. She was weeding in the greenhouse next to Laura. What's wrong with you today? Maya, the person you found for me yesterday, he's my father. And Laura briefly told her the story of her family. Maya sighed. I can't believe it. Your family is not a family, it's a mess and a snake pit. Laura, maybe he's wealthy? Laura looked at her, confused. Even if he is, which I doubt, what difference does it make? What do you mean? He could easily pay off your debt to that jerk and you'd be free. Oh Maya, how can you even say that? The man is dying, am I supposed to ask him for money? I've never even met him. So what? You're so interesting, everyone uses you, but you can't use anyone. I won't do it. Can we just video chat with him tonight, if you don't mind? Oh, come on, what do I care? As soon as her father saw her, he started crying. Oh my God, you look just like Valeriana. How is she? Mom passed away. Passed away? And your grandmother? She's gone too. They talked for almost an hour and then said goodbye. I'm being admitted to the hospital tomorrow. They won't let me die in peace. But I'll write to you again. Okay, I'll be waiting. When Laura returned the laptop, Maya asked, So did you tell him about your life? No. Why? You should have seen him. He's so sick. Oh, Laura, you're such a fool. Laura fell asleep almost immediately. She woke up in the middle of the night and saw Maya on the laptop again, so she asked, What happened? Maya jumped. What? Oh, no. My son had a fever. Go back to sleep. I'm going to bed too. And the working days started to go as usual. Laura learned to ignore the pain in her back and the bloodied hands. She simply worked and counted the days. And what was the point of counting? 5 would be taken away, 2 would be added as a fine. Elios showed up from time to time. It seemed to give him special pleasure to humiliate Laura, perhaps because she was a native of the village where the billionaire himself was born and mostly raised. Laura, you don't look very good. To be honest, when you lived with your husband, you looked much better. But living behind a stone wall, I guess it's much better. And he laughed at his own joke. Laura remained silent. She wanted to slap him in his fat face, but she knew she couldn't. A week passed, then another. Every evening when Maya opened her laptop, Laura looked at her questioningly, but Maya only shook her head. Laura's father didn't show up online anymore. The day came when the disgruntled supervisor handed Maya her documents. Everyone gathered to see her off. And Maya took Laura aside. Please forgive me. It's probably my fault that your dad is no longer in touch. But you know what? As far as I'm concerned, a father like that is worse than no father at all. I don't understand. Laura looked at Maya, really not understanding. Maya sighed. On the day when you talked to him, I also messaged him. I told him your whole story, about the enormous debt, about your wonderful husband. Basically, everything. And he said he'd help. But then he must have changed his mind. Maya, why did you do that? Maya shook her head stubbornly. Why? He's your father, isn't he? He has never helped you in your life, but now he can. Be mad at me if you want, but I believe I did the right thing. Maya left, and Laura, lost, returned to her barracks. Now, even if her father shows up online, she won't know. Well, it's not meant to be. 7 more months ahead. No time to think or dream. Just before New Year, when the main work was already finished and the new one had not yet begun, Laura decided to go to the store. She had nowhere to live, of course, but New Year is a great holiday. Even the supervisor went home for the weekend. Though, no one could believe she had a family. At the store, the saleswoman, seeing Laura, crossed herself. "Laura, is it you?" "Yes, Melania." "Why are you staring at me like I'm a ghost?" "Well, Laura, no offense, but you look like you're 20 years older." "I know, Melania. I know everything. Can you please sell me what I need quickly, while there's no one here?" "Of course." Melania ran around the store, picking up what Laura showed her and talking nonstop. "Do you work for our magnate?" "Yes, I do. They say he doesn't pay at all. And people are really unhappy. He evicted people from their homes. Not the whole village, just those who couldn't fight back. And he ruined everything with his construction." Laura smirked. "That can't be true. Remember how they welcomed him? They almost threw their hats up." Melania looked at her. "Don't be so mean, Laura. People really believed that the village would revive. And now it feels like he's the master and the others are slaves." Laura remained silent. Who would know better than her who the real slaves were? "And have you heard about your husband?" Laura had already headed to the exit but stopped. "He started playing in the city." "So?" "Well, he lost everything and was beaten badly for his debts. They say he even ended up in the hospital. But then our guys ran into him. He said he's going to get married. The woman is old, but rich." Laura laughed. "Oh, Tobias. He wants a sweet life after all." Her mood improved a bit. She took the road she hadn't walked in a long time, to avoid seeing the empty space where her home used to be. However, the place was no longer empty. A brand new house, made to look old, stood in its place. She stood there for a moment before continuing on her way. She didn't even notice when a figure detached itself from the house and started following her. "Excuse me, can you tell me how to find Laura?" "Laura Calvo." She stopped. She definitely didn't know this man and had never seen him before. Plus, he seemed odd, dressed strangely, and with an accent that wasn't local. "I'm Laura Calvo. Who are you?" "Oh, I thought it was you. You look just like your mother." He pulled out the same photo her mother had. Her heart sank. "Who are you?" "My name is Roberto. I am your father's executor." Now Laura understood what had been bothering her about him. He spoke too perfectly, like a speech therapist or a foreigner. "Can we talk somewhere private?" Without prying eyes. "I assume we don't want any unwanted attention." "Well, maybe by the river. Kids go there in the summer, but there's no one there now." They walked to the river. Laura brushed off the bench and sat down. "What?" "The bench is cold." She smiled. "I can't stand, my back hurts too much." She pulled her hand out of her glove, and the man's eyes widened at the sight of her punctured, tortured hands. "What happened to you?" Laura quickly hid her hands in her glove. "What did you want to talk to me about?" "Did my father die?" "Yes. Giorgio passed away 2 months ago. But, while in the hospital, with a notary and witnesses present, he gave clear instructions regarding you." "Oh, we never got to talk, to spend time together." Laura wiped away a tear. "What do you mean by saying instructions?" The man sat next to her and opened his folder. "The instructions are very simple. Giorgio instructed me to give you everything he had. Anticipating that you wouldn't agree to go abroad, he sold everything he had 2 weeks before his death. All the money, all the assets, and much more is now yours. As his advisor and assistant, I will be with you for the first few weeks. I'll help you so that no one takes advantage of you, help you invest the money wisely. Once you're settled, I can leave you. I'm aware of your problem. First, I suggest you pay off the debt that will cause problems for the man who pawned it off on you. Secondly, take a good rest and get some sleep. And only then start dealing with business. Laura, surprised, stared at him. Are there so many funds that they will be enough for the debt? The man smiled. Your funds are enough to pay for thousands of such debts. He couldn't help it and laughed. You're looking so puzzled now. Giorgio was a very wealthy man. His job was highly valued, but not the richest. So, how do I get in touch with this person? Through the supervisor. Roberto's eyebrows raised. Excuse me, I must have misheard. Now Laura laughed. Oh, you look now as ousled as me. Let's go. I'll tell you everything on the way. By the way, is English your native language? Oh, my grandmother. Roberto told her a whole story about how his grandmother once ran away from America. But she made her children and grandchildren speak only in English at home. When Laura finished her story, they had already reached the barracks, where Lita was standing with her hands on her hips. Well, Laura? Another fine. Laura wanted to start justifying herself, as usual, but Roberto stepped forward. Excuse me, who are you? And who are you? I am Laura's lawyer. I would very much like to talk to the person who Laura supposedly owes money to. Lita, who had not even had time to change from her city clothes to her work clothes, reached into her pocket for her phone. I'll call him now. Of course, tell me that. You're hilarious. Please tell Mr. Gonzalez to bring his lawyer or notary. We'll only hand over the debt in the presence of two people. Lita looked at Roberto in surprise and walked away to explain to the owner what was going on. The girls came out of the barracks. They looked at Laura with envy, and she hugged them. Don't worry, I won't abandon you. Roberto says he'll take care of Elio right away, and soon he'll be where he's supposed to be. The girls sighed, hugged Laura, and asked her to come and visit them even if nothing works out. Elio arrived an hour later. In that time, Laura and those she worked with had already decorated the tree in the courtyard. Strangely, Lita didn't even hurry the others to work. She sat there quietly, thinking if it was time to run away or if there was still work to be done. So, who's so wealthy here? Roberto stood up. Good afternoon. I am Laura's lawyer. She would like to pay you the debt. In return, you need to give her a written statement stating that you have no claims against her. Oh, I can't believe it. Are you a foreigner or something? Absolutely. I was her father's lawyer and trusted person. Now I'm helping Laura manage the so-called inheritance. And how huge is this inheritance? Helio's smile faded a little. He remembered those conversations from childhood when adults talked about Laura's father being abroad, but nobody knew for sure. And it turned out to be true. The inheritance was apparently not small, since a person had come from there. 2 hours later, a sweaty Elio watched the departing couple. The man who came with him said, "Oh, Elio, the guy is very clever. He can turn that written statement around so much that there'll be hell to pay. If I were you, I'd leave quickly and sit quietly. No way. No one is going to tell me, Elio, what to do." The man shook his head. Well, it's up to you. It's my job to warn you. And, sorry, I won't be able to work with you anymore. I don't want to get into trouble. He got into his car and quickly drove away. Elio turned and saw the women who worked for him. Actually, they were working off the debts. What are you staring at? You can leave, but only temporarily. Anyone who wants can continue working. The salary will be doubled. 20 minutes later, only he and Lita were left. Lita pulled out a travel bag. You should pay me, Elio. I'm leaving too. He looked angrily at her. You'll manage without it. You have to work, but you're running away. Well, I'll manage somehow. I think the journalists in our city will be very interested in hearing from me. Lita laughed. She very rarely laughed and did the right thing. Her laughter sounded like a goat's bleating. Elio threw a stack of money on the table and left. Roberto brought Laura to the city's most beautiful hotel. Here is your room. Mine is across the hall. You rest, sleep, and I'll come by around 5. We'll order dinner and I'll tell you everything. And then we'll figure it out as we go along. Okay. Thank you very much. She couldn't sleep. She took a bath, blow-dried her hair, thought she needed to buy some cream, her hands hurt, her skin cracked from work. She decided to do it later. Today she wanted to dedicate herself for the rest. But she still couldn't fall asleep. In the evening, Roberto gave her a card. This is your card. It's automatically replenished. You can use it to pay for anything. Here are all the documents. The card is new. I haven't activated it yet. You need to read this. It has data on the patent. Now you are the owner of the brand for medical equipment. When you learn more about it, you will need to re-sign a contract with some companies that are manufacturers. Laura looked at him, not understanding. Don't be afraid. You will figure everything out. I will help you. Your eyes are so tired. I suggest you go to bed and rest, and tomorrow you could go to the mall and the hair salon. I don't know what else women need for happiness. All the things can wait. Thank you, Roberto. Can I ask you something? Yes, of course. You are here with me, but your family is probably waiting for you at home. He froze for a second. No. My family died. My wife and young son died in the mountains. I didn't want to live either. If it wasn't for your father, we wouldn't be having this conversation right now. Please forgive me. It's okay. You didn't know. Good night to you. To be honest, Laura was even a little tired of having a rest. In the morning, while Roberto was probably still sleeping, she quietly left the hotel room. She slept at night as if she were a carefree infant. She waved a taxi, and the car stopped right in front of her. Where are we going? Do you know where the expensive fashionable clothing stores are in our city? The elderly man smiled. I know everything. 15 minutes later, he stopped at Zoe. What a beautiful place. She paid the taxi driver and walked inside. A woman came up to her immediately. What are you interested in? Laura looked around and smiled. Everything. The woman raised an eyebrow and snapped her fingers. 2 young girls appeared next to her. Nora, you are for lingerie, Marta for dresses and suits. I'll take care of outerwear. For 2 hours, Laura felt as if she were at a fashion show. She tried on so much. She put aside most of it to buy. One outfit, a trouser suit paired with a short mink coat, she really loved. The woman who met her suddenly said, Wait, you can't go outside in those shoes. She quickly dialed someone's number, and within 10 minutes, Laura didn't even have time to finish her coffee. A girl with several boxes appeared in the store. Now it's perfect. Would you like me to pack your clothes? Can you throw it away? The woman smiled. With pleasure. There's an excellent beauty salon nearby. The owner is my friend. If you want, I can call and ask her to take you in without an appointment. Oh, thank you. I really want to. The beauty salon was literally 2 doors down. Next to the entrance to the salon was the entrance to a grocery store. Laura smiled to herself. A year ago, she would have chosen exactly that entrance. Tobias paced in front of shop for an hour. What kind of a person Zoe is? She went to buy something tasty for dinner and has been disappearing in the store for an hour now. On the one hand, it's even good because he doesn't have to listen to her dumb jokes and endure her endless desire to touch him, but on the other hand, he can't leave. Zoe already bought him a car. Not the most expensive, but Tobias never had one like that. Besides, she promised to pay off his debt if he behaves well. He wasn't that big, but there was nowhere for Tobias to get money, and someone could easily break his head for him. So, he behaved well and tried his best. Tobias, is that you? He turned sharply. Oh, how he hated unexpected encounters with acquaintances because he owed money most of them. Oh, Melania, hi. It was just a saleswoman from a rural shop. Managed to get to the city from your village? Yeah, I did. Need to buy something. Well, there's nothing in the village. Melania glanced at the car. I see you're doing well. Tobias grimaced. Please don't, Laura works there, and I'm the bad guy. Elio chose her. Melania raised her eyebrows surprisedly. I wasn't going to. Laura doesn't work there anymore. She paid Elio and everything, she's free. Her lawyer made such a fuss that he shut down his own company. What? Not at all. The women who worked there said that her lawyer said he would put everyone in jail and buy them all out. Melania was happy with the effect. Of course, no women said anything, but let this scum know. Melania went on her business, and Tobias started thinking. So, what does it mean? His wife is living in luxury, and he has to live with an old woman and make ends meet. It's not fair. He needs to do something. He needs, in general, to return to Laura. The most fantastic ideas were born in Tobias' head. He turned and froze. A woman was walking towards the taxi that stopped nearby. Rather, it was not a woman, it was a queen. A very expensive coat, hairstyle, high-heeled boots. Tobias rubbed his eyes. No, there couldn't be any mistakes. It was Laura. While he was realizing it, the taxi drove off, taking his wife away. Oh, Melania didn't lie. He didn't have time to reconsider. The squeaking voice echoed throughout the street. Tobias, Tobias. Why are you standing like a statue? Or do you think I will carry the bags myself to feed you? Tobias jerked and turned. Zoe stood on the porch of the shop. She was old and fat, 15 years older than him. She was wealthy. But, as he now understood, very relatively wealthy Zoe. Well, why are you staring at? Quickly take the bags. Tobias saw passers-by paying attention to them, smiling. He walked towards Zoe, approached, pulled out the car keys, and threw them at her. Screw you. Find another sucker. What? You've got some nerve. You won't get a penny from me. Let them cut something off for your debts in the back alley. But Tobias was already striding down the street, pondering how to find out where Laura was now. Clearly not in the village. She had nowhere to live there. Oh, he should have asked Melania for more details. Tobias had to go to the village and even stay overnight with the neighbors. But in 3 days he gathered all the necessary information. The only thing left was to borrow some money for flowers. He couldn't show up to his wife empty-handed. Laura was studying documents. For hours she had been familiarizing herself with the technique that helped people get back on their feet. At first, it was all unclear, then interesting, and by the end of the reading, she was sure it was a real miracle. She even read many reviews where even those considered hopeless started walking again. This is so necessary. But as I understand it, this is all only overseas? Yes. There is something similar here, but only in the capital. Laura pondered. Roberto, tell me if I'm wrong. If such a treatment center is located in nature, for example, in our village, it would have more value, right? The man smiled almost imperceptibly. Well, what can you say? Good girl. She grasped the essence instantly and thought everything through. Of course. You see, without walks, sunbathing, and everything like that, the treatment takes much longer. It's a pity that Elio took over our village. We have such beautiful nature there. You know, Laura, we are similar after all. I really enjoyed it there too. Everything is so genuine, natural, or something like that. And Elio. It's probably time to deal with him? To free the village from his so-called reign. Is that possible? In our world, nothing is impossible, especially if there is money. By the way, based on the location of the houses, I looked, it would be an excellent treatment center where even the healthiest would come to get better. And that's money, and a lot of it. Plus, it's job opportunities. Roberto, if we do this, we will do the great job. He smiled. After Laura returned from her women's trip, he didn't even recognize her at first. And when he realized that she could be that beautiful, he died. Now the most important thing was not to show her that he felt that way about her. Otherwise, it would turn out that he came with money for the heiress. They discussed some details and Roberto went to his room. The phone rang. Laura, there is a man here asking for you. He's eager to see you. He's saying he's your husband. My what? Husband. I'll be right down. Don't let him in here. She left the room and ran into Roberto. Laura, you look pale. What happened? Nothing, everything's fine. And she quickly headed for the elevator. Roberto followed. What was going on? He's supposed to protect her. He immediately recognized the man who was trying to hug Laura. She was pushing his hands away. Tobias, what do you want? How dare you show up here? Laura, I'm actually your husband. That's a temporary situation. I've already filed for divorce. What divorce? What are you talking about? A sound of breaking glass echoed through Tobias's head. No, he wouldn't give up on his dream. Laura is his wife. When he dresses up, he'll look cool too. He'll invent something. Not something simple, but something worth it, because they have money. Laura, you just don't understand what kind of future awaits us. What? Do you want me to tell you? No way. And don't even come near me. You only bring trouble. Tobias, learn to live on your own. I don't understand. Are you serious? I'm dead serious. Tobias grimaced. So, when you need help getting out of trouble, you need Tobias. But when you have money, you don't need Tobias. I have already paid you back. If you haven't forgotten, I worked off your debt for you. You treated me like a thing, using me to make money for your own entertainment. Tobias couldn't take it anymore. You're wrong. I even bought flowers. Who needs someone like you? You're not even worth anything. Laura looked at him. If anyone is not worth anything in this life, it's you. Tobias didn't even realize what he was doing. He was just in so much pain, knowing that nothing would change, that he couldn't be beautiful and rich. And he had so many images in his head. He hit Laura. And swung again. All his hurt and anger came out in his fist. Tobias wanted to cry. And it was all her fault. She was to blame for everything. He didn't get to hit her a second time. Some guy hit him so hard he couldn't breathe and fell to the ground. Hotel staff rushed over, someone called the police. 2 weeks later, Laura and Roberto came back to the village. Elio had been taken over by people competent in this matter. He was in so much trouble that he couldn't count it all on his fingers. Julia hardly left the house. Elio was now responsible for the salary of the entire village. Laura understood that she needed to talk to the people. The rumors were spreading and they didn't know what was happening, which made them so gloomy. The villagers, who had always preferred stability and routine, were very scared. When a large crowd gathered around their car, Laura spoke up. You all know me from childhood. I have never shirked work, never done anything wrong. And most importantly, I love our village. Let me answer the most important questions right away. Yes, I inherited money. Yes, I bought everything Elio managed to buy here. There were gasps from the crowd. Wow! And are you going to build a factory now too? Laura smiled. No, I wanted to talk to you all about it first. The people waited in suspense. She handed out brochures on medical equipment and spoke at the same time. We can save nature, make a name for ourselves, and create a lot of job vacancies. If you all say no, then nothing will happen, I promise you." There was no discussion. Old Pablo, the oldest person in the village, spoke up and said, "I think we can trust Laura. If it's all true, our village will be famous all over the world." When they returned to the city, they decided they needed to celebrate the beginning of their successful endeavor. Roberto seemed too gloomy. "What's wrong with you? It's like you're not happy about our success." "What are you talking about?" "Of course, I'm happy. I just realized something today. You don't need me anymore, you can do everything on your own. I can leave." When we got back, I booked a flight. I'm leaving tomorrow morning. Laura knew that sooner or later it had to happen. But why now? Why not later, someday? She knew what he liked. She couldn't let him go. "Roberto." "Yes?" "Roberto, could you postpone your flight?" "Postpone? Do you still need me here?" "Yes, I need you very much." He shrugged. Well, he'll suffer a little longer for her. It was unbearable to be next to someone you're going to lose very soon. "Okay. How long should I postpone it for? When should I reschedule the flight?" He reached for the phone. "In the next life. I won't let you go in this one." Roberto slowly raised his eyes to her, looked at her for a long time, and then said, "I don't want you to think that I stayed because of the money. I don't think that. But everyone will. Do you care about what others think?" Roberto smiled. "Laura, you're just scared, you don't love me." "And do you love me?" And then he blushed. "I do, but..." "Then I'll drop everything and go with you." A second later, Laura was in Roberto's embrace. He was kissing her and repeating, "Lately, I've had only one desire, to kiss you. Now you'll have to put up with me for the rest of your life." "I agree." Laura laughed happily.
If you're enjoying it as well, leave a like and subscribe.